2 hours ago, the White House crossed a line no American administration has ever crossed with an allied nation. President Trump issued a formal executive memorandum threatening to freeze and seize up to $800 billion in Canadian sovereign and private assets held within the United States financial system. Not negotiations. A direct financial weapon aimed at the economic foundation of America's closest neighbor. Paired with it came two additional directives that stunned even senior officials inside the State Department. A full ban on Canadian vessels entering American territorial waters and an immediate suspension of Canadian civilian and commercial aircraft from United States airspace. Together, these three actions constitute what international legal experts are already calling a comprehensive economic and logistical blockade against a NATO ally. The justification was a single paragraph. Canada's refusal to enter good-faith negotiations over shared water resource management constitutes an ongoing threat to American national security interests. No prior warning. No diplomatic backchannel. No congressional consultation. Just a memorandum, a threat, and a timer. The assumption inside the West Wing was simple. $800 billion is a number so large, so existentially threatening, that Ottawa would have no choice but to call within hours and accept whatever terms Washington placed on the table. They were wrong. But before we break down exactly what happened, if you want to stay ahead of stories like this, hit that subscribe button and like this video right now. The $800 billion figure is not arbitrary. Canadian pension funds, sovereign wealth vehicles, and provincial investment authorities collectively hold assets embedded across American markets at a depth that took decades to build. The Canada Pension Plan alone holds over $60 billion in American infrastructure and equity positions. The Ontario Teachers' Pension Plan manages another $45 billion in U.S. assets. If frozen, the damage would not stop at Canada. It would send a shockwave through every sovereign wealth fund on Earth. Because the message to Tokyo, Oslo, Singapore, and Riyadh would be identical. American financial markets can be weaponized against allies at will, with no legal process and no recourse. The airspace ban disrupts over 500 Canadian commercial flights daily. The maritime ban paralyzes Great Lakes cargo movement, leaving shipments of grain, steel, and energy inputs locked at docks on both sides of the border with no legal mechanism to move. Washington modeled this as a pressure campaign. They did not model it as a transformation. Mark Carney held a press conference 40 minutes after the memorandum went public. Not from Parliament. From the port of Halifax, flanked by Coast Guard vessels and the premiers of Nova Scotia, British Columbia, and Ontario. He opened with one sentence. The United States has just threatened to steal the retirement savings of Canadian teachers, nurses, and firefighters. We have been preparing for this moment for 14 months. Then he announced 4 countermeasures that left Washington without a coherent response. First, Canada is activating emergency asset repatriation protocols. All Canadian institutional funds inside American markets have federal authorization to begin an orderly withdrawal. Legal teams had already prepared the documentation. The process begins within 24 hours. The scale of coordinated institutional exit from American equities and real estate, even over 90 days, would be the largest Allied capital withdrawal from American markets since the Second World War. Second, Canada is filing emergency injunctive relief at the International Court of Justice, the World Trade Organization, and under CUSMA dispute mechanisms simultaneously. Germany, France, Japan, and the United Kingdom have agreed to file supporting declarations within 48 hours. These are not symbolic gestures. They are nations holding trillions in American market exposure who just watched Washington threaten to seize Allied sovereign assets. Their participation is not solidarity. It is self-preservation. Third, Canada is announcing reciprocal vessel and airspace restrictions effective in 72 hours. American commercial vessels in the St. Lawrence Seaway and Great Lakes approaches will require individual federal authorization per transit. American aircraft routing through Canadian airspace for transatlantic operations face the same requirements. And then Carney said something that made the room go silent. He said, "Canada controls the overflight corridors that American military aircraft use for Arctic patrol operations. We have not yet made a decision about those corridors, but we are making one." Washington understood immediately what that meant. Fourth, and this is what triggered an emergency National Security Council session, Carney announced the formal expansion of the alternative financial settlement framework Canada had been quietly building. Australia, Japan, and South Korea have now formally joined. India signed a memorandum of understanding. The system clears transactions through London, Frankfurt, Tokyo, and Sydney, with no American financial institution required. Combined GDP of participating economies, over $48 trillion. The dollar dropped 1.8% against allied currencies within 35 minutes of the press conference. Treasury yields moved sharply as bond markets priced in coordinated sovereign withdrawal. The Dow fell 960 points before close. Not because Canada is bigger than America, because the signal was unmistakable. American financial dominance rests on one assumption, that assets held within the system are protected by rule of law, not subject to executive seizure over political disputes. The $800 billion threat did not demonstrate American power. It demonstrated American willingness to break the foundational assumption on which that power rests. The American business community's response was immediate and furious. The Business Roundtable called the memorandum legally reckless and economically self-defeating. The Financial Services Forum warned that threatening Allied sovereign asset seizure would accelerate the financial decoupling the administration claims to want to prevent. A senior executive at a major American asset manager told Bloomberg anonymously, "Our institutional clients in Tokyo, London, and Frankfurt are not asking whether their assets are safe in America. They are asking how quickly they can reduce exposure." Internationally, the European Central Bank expressed deep concern over implications for global financial stability. Germany's finance minister called the threat an attack on the international rules-based financial order. Japan's government said security of sovereign assets in allied nations is a matter of foundational importance. 6 Republican senators demanded the memorandum be withdrawn before markets opened the following morning. Trump now faces 3 options, and none deliver what the memorandum was designed to achieve. Enforce the freeze and watch Allied capital begin a coordinated exit, while the dollar's reserve status faces its most serious structural challenge in decades. Withdraw the memorandum and hand Carney the most complete diplomatic victory any Canadian leader has achieved against an American president. Or escalate further and accelerate the financial architecture diversification that every allied nation is now actively pursuing. Carney has already set the condition. Full withdrawal before any conversation begins. No partial measures. No face-saving language. Complete withdrawal. 2 hours ago, the White House believed it was deploying an overwhelming financial weapon against a smaller economy with no choice but to yield. What it actually deployed was the clearest signal yet to every allied nation that American financial dominance now carries a new condition, political compliance. And the world is responding accordingly. Carney did not blink. The dollar did. Trump wanted submission. He got a movement.